We arrive upon a grim battlefield echoing of destruction and defiance as the war-scarred landscape unfolds beneath a crimson sky. The blood-soaked ground embracing the tattered banners of once intrepid legions, while the twisted metals of their war machines smolder, the infernal iron still hot to the touch. Each broken blade and shattered bone a silent witness to the savagery of fiends, remnants of 1,000 battles, and a grave reminder the costs of war, any war. We stand upon Avernus to take a mortal account of an immortal conflict. The Blood War, right now on Riches and Liches. Few events in the storied history of Dungeons & Dragons carry the gravitas, historical relevance, or the enduring nature of the fiendish conflict known as the Blood War. This eternal strife is the fulcrum upon which the balance of the lower planes and perhaps the multiverse teeters. A relentless battle waged between the embodiment of lawful and ordered structure, the Baatezu devils, and the agents of pure chaos and unfettered consumption, the Tanar'ri demons. This forever war is not one of simple conquest as most mortal wars are waged. The Blood War is not a conflict for the hearts and minds of a people, nor is it fought primarily over territorial claims or the riches of a particular resource. Instead, this far more profound and fundamental struggle is about as close as evil factions can get to enacting a holy war. The Blood War is the endless bloodshed and animosity over the nature of evil itself, with order and tyranny on one side and anarchy and chaos on the other. The battles fought in this enduring hostility are every bit as much ideologic as they are physical, with each battle from the smallest skirmish to full-scale legion-wide assaults reflecting a never-ending philosophical debate now made manifest. Is evil a force of meticulous structure and oppressive hierarchy, or is it the wild, untamed chaos of destruction and consumption that defies any and all boundaries? Today we will attempt to dissect the intricacies of the Blood War, elucidate its origins, chronicle its most pivotal battlefields, and delve into the dark politics and brutal economies that fuel these fires. Moreover, we will examine the war's profound impact on the foundation and even continued existence of the multiverse, from the philosophical and divine meanings attributed to the conflict to the direct and often calamitous effects upon the material plane. Make no mistake, this is not a war of good versus evil. The Blood War is an enduring tale of the paradoxes of evil battling evil, each with no compromise and a deep-seated hatred for the other. This is a war where honor can be found among the most deceitful and where betrayal is as common as allegiance. And yet one where perhaps the cruelest and purest form of evil fights to prevent a darker future. As we move forward in this definitive exploration of the Blood War, keep in mind that while conflicts do exist in the lore across versions, I'll be relying on the most abundant, well-defined, and in my own personal opinion, most accurate lore from the third editions of the game, 3.0 and 3.5 respectively. However, I will make appropriate callouts to other versions, namely the 5e source material updates, where they're most relevant. For example, the rulership change in Avernus, things like that. Regardless, hopefully in the end we can bring some clarity to these obscurities and contradictions that define this, the greatest of all planar conflicts across all editions of Dungeons & Dragons. The incessant friction that is the Blood War exists as the tangible manifestation of the diametrically opposed principles of two factions of fiends, the Baatezu of the Nine Hells and the Tanar'ri of the Abyss. Though their appearances may often be similar, the ideological divide between these two warring entities could not be more profound. In the tiered echelons of the Nine Hells, the tyrannical Baatezu stand as paragons of structure and law. Their realm, a reflection of that controlled order, is in reality a distorted mirror, one of servitude and enslavement, where each devil, from the insignificant imp to the archdevils commanding entire layers of hell, is meticulously placed within a calculated hierarchy, all in accordance with the wishes of Hell's sovereign ruler, Asmodeus. Within the infernal society of the Nine Hells, each devil is a cog in a vast, complex machine of diabolic efficiency, with promotions meted out with precision for achievements, loyalty, and the advancement of Hell's cause. This ideology stems from a conviction that chaos is the root of all suffering and destruction. Thus, through tyranny, they seek to eradicate that disorder and unpredictability from the cosmos. The Blood War is the crucible upon which the Baatezu forge their universal mandate of order, the campaign to extinguish the anarchy of the Abyss and realign the multiverse to their ironclad ideologies. And it is through ambition that this structure is both cultivated and maintained. Every devil is imbued with a fervent and intrinsic aspiration to climb Hell's rigid corporate ladder, where each finds in the Blood War their own path to ascension. Success in battle affords each Baatezu increased power and status within Hell's hierarchy, while failure leads to disgrace, demotion, and sometimes even obliteration. Thus, the personal aspirations of the Baatezu conform with the broader ideals, propelling the Nine Hells forward toward their ultimate objective, the establishment of an infernal hegemony upon all creation, a universe where their doctrine of discipline, governance, and ordered hierarchy brings forth the emergence of their own perverted version of harmony and perfection, a multiverse where their immutable rule is absolute, and every creature, every existence, marches to the cadence of their merciless will. The capital required for such lofty goals can only be found in souls, the only true currency of infernal power and elevation, a resource more precious than gold in the Nine Hells. Gathering souls is the lever with which the Baatezu meet all their economic needs. This in turn fuels the war machine, while simultaneously depriving the Tanar'ri of potential evil allies. This duality of purpose is critical in fortifying the Baatezu position in a persistent war against an endless enemy. The Blood War for the Baatezu is a crusade of lawful ideology, a battle to impose their vision of an ordered, hierarchical existence that can only be achieved by eradicating the volatile nature of anarchy and chaos that they believe plagues all of creation. With this collective resolve, the devils are an unyielding infernal force, hell-bent, if you'll excuse the pun, in their efforts to expunge their sworn enemy, the Tanar'ri, from the multiverse. Turning our attention now to the abyssal depths, we have the Tanar'ri, who stand opposed to every tenet of the Nine Hells. In this contrasted light, these demons are a nightmarish throng who are defined by their own brand of insidious ambition for domination and the expansion of their chaotic dominion. Yet their motives and ideologies certainly appear far less complicated: rage, destruction, consumption. But let's examine more closely. The Tanar'ri view the multiverse through a much different lens, believing that only through the annihilation of all order can true freedom be achieved and individuality flourish. And the Blood War represents their opportunity to erase the hated devils while plunging the lower planes into unchecked chaos. Where the devils see hierarchy, the demons only see chains. Where the devils enforce order, the demons look to shatter such structures. No, the abyssal fiends will stop at nothing short of the obliteration of such contrivances. And with the exception of a few select demon lords, the Tanar'ri play no games of manipulation and subterfuge as is so common in the Nine Hells. Yes, the Tanar'ri are driven by an insatiable desire to consume, slaughter, and leave ruin in their wake, but not as a means to an end. Instead, these actions are an adherence to their unyielding belief in that freedom. Freedom from rules, freedom from codes and formalities, freedom from fate, heck, even freedom from each other. The purest form of freedom, anarchy. The societal structure of the Tanar'ri, if it can be called such a thing, is one of constant discord, an abyssal arena where only the strongest, the most cunning, and the most brutal survive, thrive, and prosper. While no doubt a myopic ideology, it does not always manifest as random carnage as many uninformed scholars like to parrot in their mortal echo chambers. It is in fact a deeply ingrained belief that only through the abolishing of order, rules, and regulation that this truest form of freedom can be achieved. And it is this conviction that feeds their ferocity in the Blood War and often paints them as the mindless rage machines to those aforementioned scholars of apathy. The Tanar'ri motives may appear as simple-minded and beast-like on the battlefield, but it is this steadfast belief that drives them to wage the unending campaign of terror against the Baatezu. Each skirmish, each invasion, and each atrocity committed by the Tanar'ri is a clear declaration of their refusal to be bound by any rule, be it divine, cosmic, or infernal. Now that we have a better understanding of the divergent and opposing ideologies of the Blood War, let us now look at the contrasting strengths and strategies of these two fiendish military forces, starting with the Baatezu devils of Baatezu. One of the more interesting facets of the infernal side of the Blood War is the apathy shown by the vast majority of the archdevils of the Nine Hells. While Avernus holds a starring role in the Blood War, and with the exception of Asmodeus, you'll be hard-pressed to find more than a passing interest from the remaining rulers of the lower layers. From an historical perspective, prior to the release of 5th edition, the Baatezu's well-disciplined and highly strategic military efforts in the Blood War were directed by a combination of the general and then ruler of Avernus, Bel, and the Dark Eight, a cadre of 8 pit fiends entrusted by Asmodeus himself with orchestrating military operations, promotion and formation of the devil forces, securing resources, and even negotiating alliances with external powers. In these more recent times, with Zariel now ruling as the archdevil of Hell's first layer, the bulk of the military stratagem rests solely upon the shoulders of the fallen solar angel, by her own choice and hubris, and with very mixed results. While most devils would agree, although not openly, that Bel and the Dark Eight were far superior military leads when compared to Zariel's notorious foul temper and reactive, emotionally charged decisions, still, as the hand-picked choice of Asmodeus, Zariel, with all of her angelic sense of infallibility and arrogance intact, is the unquestioned leader over the crimson front line of the Blood War we know as Avernus. This position, of course, relegating the deposed Bel and the Dark Eight Council to more ancillary and administrative roles. That said, the devils are still exponentially more organized and skilled in matters of the military than their demonic adversaries. Yet, despite their clearly superior discipline and tactics, the devils will forever face an overwhelming numerical disadvantage against the literal infinite hordes of the abyssal demons. This disparity stems from the nature of their very creation. You see, the rank-and-file Baatezu devils are solely created from the souls of evil beings, requiring a constant need and vigilant harvesting for new souls. And while the Tanar'ri can and do compete for souls as well, which manifest into their own demonic larvae that are subsequently devoured or promoted into higher forms of their species, but the demonic forces are primarily birthed directly from the raw chaotic fabric of the abyss itself. As a result, the devils are forever at a numbers disadvantage, having to perpetually contend with what is an endless replenishment of the demonic military forces. And it is here that we have one of the most important takeaways when looking into this facet of the Tanar'ri, and that is the fact that they are, by any and all measure, a fractured and undisciplined race of fiends. In a true paradox, despite their overwhelming numbers advantage, this greatest strength is also their greatest weakness, as each Tanar'ri that emerges from the abyss does so with the strongest of chaotic and independent principles, resulting in an unwieldy and far too numerous lot to unite under any single ruler. Not that the Tanar'ri could even select a single ruler, as the demon lords are no less selfish and undisciplined as the rank and file. Because of this, the demons are constantly warring among themselves as much as against the Baatezu. This lack of any coordination, formal hierarchy, or even agreed-upon battle objectives is decidedly their greatest military flaw, and one that is easily witnessed on any battlefield, as the demonic forces operate far more like that of a riotous mob than any semblance of a regimented military. a flaw that the devils, above all others, expertly expose. This critical factor cannot be illustrated any more clearly than in the fact that so many demon lords have little, waning, or even no interest in participating in the conflict. Despite the Blood War being a fundamental part of the Tanar'ri identity, there exists a not insignificant number of demon lords who hold ever-changing priorities, mercurial allegiances, and greedy self-serving objectives, all leading to a capricious commitment to the fight against the Baatezu. Some Tanar'ri lords find it more important to solidify their own power, status, and influence within the Abyss, choosing to isolate themselves in order to scheme against those fellow demon lords who are distracted by the war. Others avoid the conflict in order to focus on accumulating political influence by gaining followers through mortal cults on the material plane, or subverting contested abyssal layers to their own will and ambitions. You may even be surprised to learn that there are actually groups of pragmatic and wise demon lords who aspire to peacefully end the Blood War altogether, in order to unite all fiends together to destroy the forces of good. The gods help us all if that scenario were ever achieved. So make no mistake, it is this anarchy and chaos, both on and off the battlefield, that most assuredly, and thankfully, keep these opposing forces of evil locked in a continual stalemate, all to the great benefit of the multiverse at large. What is the origin of the Blood War? That very question has long been the subject of speculation and conjecture among the many sages and scholars of Faerun. While no one, even the ivory-towered wizards of the coast, will be able to provide an empirical answer, our discoveries today will allow us to lay out the most studied theories for our own speculation and critical review. We will start with the more conspiratorial of theories and work our way into the realm of plausibility. The most biased and unlikely of these centers around and is mostly isolated to the teachings of the fiendish daemons. More likely propaganda than even fable, this mythology states that the Yugoloths, those neutral evil fiends who so often sell their services to both factions of the war, may have engineered the Blood War themselves as part of a grand experiment. Called the Yugoloth experimental theory, this piece of fiction paints the Yugoloths as architects of the conflict to explore the very precise nature of evil itself through the endless suffering the war perpetuates. Interesting? Sure. However, given the Yugoloths' historically and well-documented penchant for self-aggrandizing and deceit, as quite possibly the most selfish and dishonest race in all of existence, I think it's safe to say this one can be chalked up as nothing more than disinformation. Another and only slightly more believable thesis on the inception of the Blood War suggests that the very gods themselves, through their own vested interests, colluded in both devising and extending this continual conflict. This deific conspiracy theory hints at a divine calculus, wherein the orchestration of this ceaseless struggle between the devils and demons was actually an intentional design of the gods to prevent any one faction from gaining enough power to threaten the sacred pantheons of the realm. While I guess I would buy this before the daemon experimental theory, it too is backed by nothing substantial other than the gods would certainly have the power to do this had they chosen to do so. Moving away from conspiracies and collusion, we find a theory that actually would be quite plausible, in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is, if this theory were removed from its direct contradiction with related and well-established lore, we might actually have something. Unfortunately for this hypothesis, if it were the canonical truth or historical fact, it would have far-reaching and negative impacts on some established and more entrenched lore. Of course, if you know anything about the lore of Dungeons & Dragons, you likely already know that this level of contradiction usually means we're talking about a 4th edition tale. However, I will point out that in this channel's first year, I've gradually pivoted towards a new stance on 4E lore. Whereas I was initially and still biased against any claim of canonical provenance with the 4E history that was dictated for reasons that were Well, let's just say not in the best interests of the game from the player's perspective. But I have come to take the position that if you just take these stories as fables and tales of fiction or even alternate dogma, they can still be quite enjoyable. That said, this 4th edition tale posits that the war's genesis was through the seed of evil theory, which proposes that the origins of the Blood War lie tangled in the He Who Was origin story of Asmodeus, which I've covered previously. According to this fiction, Asmodeus' journey into the heart of the newly formed abyss, his dealings with the demon lord Baatezu, and ultimately his theft of the seed or shard of evil that the myth also says was used in the creation of his ruby rod, may have set the stage for the Blood War. Again, this is a compelling and certainly interesting story worth exploring, but one that has so many direct contradictions to the more established Serpents of Law and Pact Primeval origins of the Lord of the Nine. If you'd like to get all the details on this, as well as the more canonical origin stories that I just mentioned for Asmodeus and the Nine Hells, I have a link below in the show notes. Now, before we uncover a final 2 theories that are a bit more grounded in at least circumstantial evidence, I have to mention what is easily the most obscure and yet persistent connection to the Blood War. Rumors have always swirled about the Lady of Pain and her possible involvement. However, from a canonical lore perspective, that really is all that exists, across all sources, just references to the Lady of Pain having rumored involvement somehow in the fiendish war. But during my research, I formulated several theories of my own, and while I actually did begin to compile them for this very volume, before I knew it, I had an entire chapter. However, since these would have to be categorized as homebrew lore, it's probably best that I save those for a Planescape series that I already have planned. But simply for the sake of completeness, I wanted to make sure that she was at least mentioned here because those rumors do persist. Let us now move into the realm of plausibility, where we have the 2 most prominent origin theories. The first, you might say, follows the old Occam's razor principle that the simplest explanation is preferable to one that is more complex. And in that context, we have a credible theory that the Blood War is simply a direct extension of the same primordial wars fought over the same order and chaos that shaped the cosmos during the Dawn War, which we've also covered, link below. The Blood War in this framework represents the continuation of that ancient struggle, with the Baatezu devils and the Tanar'ri demons as the modern analogs to the gods and primordials that represented those opposing forces today still locked in an eternal clash for dominance. While I see no overt or glaring contradictions with this hypothesis, there's also very little compelling evidence to sway me, and personally I think it detracts too much from the Dawn War itself, which is quite possibly the only war that is arguably as historic as the Blood War. That said, I'd have a harder time disproving this one than the previous entries, so I would consider this perhaps a safe or default assumption. However, for me, the most lauded and likely of theories solving for the genesis of the Blood War begins in the world of Greyhawk, which, as most of you know, was the original OG world setting for Dungeons & Dragons. Within the lore-rich pages of that world setting, we find another, even more ancient conflict known as the Great War of Law against Chaos. This is an aspect of a much larger facet of lore as part of the fantastic story of the Rod of 7 Parts, most certainly deserving of its own video and one that is already on my roadmap, so look for that at some point in the future. But briefly and specific to our question today of Blood War origins, it is believed that the Blood War may in fact be the enduring remnant of that more ancient conflict from the Greyhawk world, and we have some circumstantial evidence to support this theory. First, the historical timelines of the Great War of Law against Chaos and the subsequent Blood War are in the right proximity, so far as such ancient history can be accurately traced. And second, just like the Blood War, this precursor war pit forces of law against the primordial and abyssal ambassadors of anarchy and chaos. In this tale of legend, we find the Wind Dukes of Akka as the agents of law, standing as the bulwark against the demonic hordes of the Queen of Chaos, herself a powerful Oberith who ruled the Abyss in this age before ages, and still rules the 14th layer of the Abyss called the Steaming Fin to this very day. This war against chaos, just like the Blood War of today, was mostly a stalemate, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage over millennia of battle. Now, I am skipping over a lot of lore here to be covered in detail another time, but the Wind Dukes were able to create a supreme artifact called the Rod of Law, which you may recognize today as the Rod of Seven Parts. The culmination of this war came at the Battle of Pesh, which veteran lore scholars will remember took place beneath the shadow of the famous White Plume Mountain, one of the more historic of adventure modules, and one that has been updated into 5th edition, compliments of the Tales from the Yawning Portal resource book. Upon the fields of Pesh, the Wind Dukes battled the armies of the Demon Prince and General Miska the Wolf Spider. During this bloody skirmish, with several of the Vate Dukes struck down and the forces of law upon the brink, a Wind Duke that history records as Kadij used the Rod of Law to strike a near-mortal blow upon Miska. This was a turning point in the battle and the war, as the abyssal armies were broken, while a severely injured Miska would ultimately be imprisoned upon the Plain of Pandemonium. This act not only forcing the Queen of Chaos and her demonic armies into retreat back to the Abyss, but the resulting balance enabled the creation of the multiverse as we know it, and perhaps, if you believe this legend, it was here at the conclusion of the war of law against chaos in those fields of Pesh where the genesis of the enduring clash of ideologies would begin. The Wind Dukes, despite their victory, were decimated by the Tanar'ri, and the Vate as a race never recovered. To many scholars, this is where the Baatezu devils step in, replacing the Vati in the role of lawful agents, continuing to press the hordes of chaos even to this day. And the fate of that storied artifact, the Rod of Law, a relic noted by the legendary archmage Lord Blackstaff as one of the few known magic items in the entire multiverse to have the powers and abilities of series magic. Well, it was shattered into 7 parts when it struck Miska, which turns out was a fortunate accident. But we shall save that and a lot more about this story for another day. While this forever clash of demons and devils forms the crux of the Blood War, it is the involvement of third-party factions that often introduce some of the more volatile and unpredictable elements as the war's echo of influence stretches across the multiverse. These ancillary factions, varying in allegiance, power, and certainly motive, play roles that can sway battles, alter strategies, and in rare instances, redefine the course of the war itself. Some play more indirect roles, while others look to influence and gain leverage or profit from this enduring war machine. However, there also exist a few more active participants in these fiendish hostilities. Spawning across the gray wastes of Hades, Gehenna, Carceri, and even Acheron, the Yugoloths, full of avarice and deceit, play a cunning yet dangerous game as the primary profiteers of the Blood War. They align themselves with both sides, shifting alliances as the conflict progresses or motives change, always looking to capitalize on the turmoil that's inherent in any war, offering their services to the highest bidder or whichever faction best suits their selfish needs or their secretive ulterior motivations. The Yugoloths' involvement in the Blood War can be seen as a double-edged sword. While they can certainly be powerful allies, their loyalty is always wayward and temporary, bought by coin, favor, or other self-centered motives, but never guaranteed. This mercenary-like nature makes them an unreliable element on the battlefield, capable of turning the tide of a conflict, but always with the potential to betray their employers if it suits their often hidden and greater interests. Turning our attention now to the heavens, we have the angelic legions of good from the upper planes, who watch the Blood War with a wary eye. Yet despite the cosmic significance of the Blood War, the Celestials have mostly remained on the sidelines, content to observe the conflict from afar. Their inaction certainly drawing criticism from some. If you watched our video on the 100-year siege of Malharok, linked below, then you'll know that Asmodeus is chief among those who brashly challenge the heavens to play a more active role. And he is not alone, as there are many scholars and theologians of Faerun who argue that the Celestials have a moral obligation to intervene and quell the chaos. However, still others believe the celestial involvement would only escalate the bloodshed and disrupt the delicate balance of the lower planes. There are those who would tell you that this celestial abstention from direct intervention is due to past failures or their concern for escalating tensions. However, the prevailing wisdom would lead one to believe that these rare and limited divine interventions are carefully measured and most certainly not motivated by any desire to aid either the Baatezu or the Tanar'ri, but only as a strict recognition of need to maintain that cosmic balance. The Celestials are acutely aware that too heavy a hand could disrupt the delicate stalemate that keeps the blood war contained, preferring to simply let the fiends exhaust themselves rather than risk further calamity. And to be fair, it's worked for millennia. I think the mantra of "don't fix what ain't broken" is apt here. Anathema to the position of the Celestials, we find the Modrons, inhabitants of the plane of Mechanus and servants of absolute order under their god Primus, have a both more complex and active relationship with the blood war. Lawful constructs, they operate under the directive of Primus, who abhors chaos and views the blood war as a threat to the stability of the multiverse. Operating independently but in firm support of the Baatezu cause, these champions of rigorous order comprise a force of nearly 1 million who actively engage the Tanar'ri with mechanical precision and bring a level of discipline and control to the battlefield that rivals any company of infernal Maragons. While the Modrons are naturally inclined to oppose such chaotic forces represented by the demons, they also recognize the dangers of a total victory for either side, and Primus is said to have no desire to see chaos spread, but also understands the importance of preserving the cosmic equilibrium. And this but scratches the surface, as there are still many minor factions with interest and dealings in this long-standing conflict. Various cultures across the planes contribute sporadically, with entities like the chaos-loving Slod from Limbo, or the powerful and neutral outsiders known as the Romani, intervening based on the ever-changing balances of power. Other outsiders, such as the neutral but certainly evil Gorelith of Carceri, whom you may know as the Demodans, or the many variant races of Gith covering alignments favored by both Tanar'ri and the Baatezu. Even mortal mercenaries from the prime material plane can all occasionally be found joining the fray, seeking adventure, prestige, or contributing to one cause or another. Though individually inconspicuous, they each wield their own influence, often shaping pivotal moments of the war's progression. Their involvement, marked by their unpredictability, remains a constant moving target through the conflict, despite the staggering casualties and psychological toll it carries. The Blood War's ferocity is not limited to the ideological scale. It is also very much reflected in the scars of the physical landscapes wherever the conflict unfolds. While the Blood War extends well beyond Avernus, there is ample reason why the first layer of Hell is the single most referenced of the battlefields. Avernus is without question the primary front line of the Blood War. This former paradise-like plane is now a blasted and barren crimson wasteland, its surface marked by the grim remains of countless souls, and its skies filled with the thick black smoke of 1,000 battles. The significance of Avernus as the battlefield of note cannot be overstated. It is here that the Tanar'ri make their most aggressive incursions into Baatezu territory, and it is also here that the Baatezu mount their fiercest defenses. This is all due in large part to the strategic importance of Avernus in its placement as the single gateway to the deeper layers of the 9 Hells. Control over Avernus allows for the control of those access points, making it a critical layer for the Baatezu to hold against the chaotic onslaught of the Tanar'ri. One of the primary of those access points lies in the river Styx, with its normally black-fetid and unholy waters turned crimson with the runoff of these battles. It meanders through the plain and serves as a passageway for the demonic forces to invade the first layer and beyond. For all these reasons and more, Avernus as the front line is perpetually under siege, littered with the bones, ruins, and twisted metals that serve as vivid reminders of the hopelessness of war, all setting upon a landscape coated in the inches-deep viscera, the lasting memories of those fiends who fought and perished here. But there are certainly other notable fronts for this war, each presenting unique challenges and opportunities for both sides. The plane outside of the Abyss and the Nine Hells that has been the most active theater of war would have to be the Grey Waste, or Hades as it is sometimes known. A realm of gloom and despair, this is a bleak and colorless plane where the sky and land blend into an indistinguishable gray expanse. Its atmosphere of unending miasma affects both demons and devils, dampening their powers, which only serves to make battles here even more brutal and exhaustive. The Grey Waste's 3 layers, Oinos, Niflheim, and Pluton, each offer their own horrors, but it is in Oinos that the Blood War most frequently rages. Carceri, the plane of prisons, is a series of 6 interconnected spheres, each a more perfect prison layer than the last. The plane's very nature is to detain and torment, making it an unlikely battlefield. Yet in the early stages of the Blood War, both the Tanar'ri and the Baatezu each fought to control this plane. The inherent difficulty of escape from Carceri makes it a potent location for trapping enemies, but its treacherous environments also pose significant risks to anyone who would choose to engage in battle within its confines. The tangled politics and alliances within Carceri only add an additional layer of complexity to any conflict that might spill over into its realms. Even Gehenna, a dread plane of volcanoes, lava flows, and fumaroles, has also seen a few notable skirmishes. Its 4 layers are mountainous realms of ash and molten ground, presenting harsh battle conditions and environmental hazards. The terrain itself seems to conspire against any and all combatants, with the river Styx offering a forgetful oblivion to any who dare touch its waters, further complicating the already near insurmountable tactical and logistical challenges of waging war here. While Avernus gets all the Blood War headlines, and for good reason, Pazunia, the first layer of the Abyss, has also seen its fair share of pivotal battles. A front door to the Abyss in much the same way Avernus is to the Hells, this layer is ruled by the demon lord Pazuzu, the dark angel of the 4 winds, and is characterized by its barren wasteland, scorching winds, and towering iron fortresses. Also referenced as the Plane of Infinite Portals, Pazunia serves as a gateway to the deeper layers of the Abyss, with countless chasms and pits leading to the infinite abyssal depths. It is also connected to Pandemonium and Hades, making it a strategic location in the lower planes for both sides of the conflict. While not as prolific a battleground territory as Avernus, then again, what is? Still, devils and demons skirmish savagely across this plane of yawning pits, constantly seeking to gain or maintain control of the Abyss. Demonic manes, the abyssal equivalent of an infernal lemure, are the most common inhabitants, used as fodder by demons in battle, while gangs of the monstrous Malideus roam the lair, conscripting stragglers and sending them to the front lines. I have really only scratched the surface here. I have found an obscure reference in the Planescape adventure The Great Modron March, stating that on at least one occasion, the Blood War extended into the upper planes, spilling into the Beastlands by means of an open portal. And in the Outlands, if not for the Lady of Pain's iron hold on Sigil, you can rest assured the Blood War would fill the streets of the City of Doors. The reverberations of the Blood War extend far beyond the battlefields of the lower planes, often drawing mortals of the prime material plane into the web of this world-shaping conflict. One of the most direct impacts of the Blood War on the mortal realm is the recruitment and/or seduction of mortals into the ranks of both factions. The Tanar'ri often lure mortals with promises of power and unchecked freedom from laws, civility, or rules, only to then turn them into frontline cannon fodder or enslaved as chaotic agents on their home planes. The Baatezu, with their penchant for contracts, pacts, and manipulation, expertly trick and coerce mortals into servitude, offering deceitful bargains with lots of fine print designed to further their own goals and efforts. Few are the Faustian pacts where the mortal comes out ahead. Both factions are expert at the exploitation of mortal ambitions, weaknesses, and desires as a means to an end, often with catastrophic consequences for the individuals involved as well as their communities. The fiendish influence on the prime material plane is perhaps most visible through the myriad cults dedicated to a wide range of demon lords and archdevils. These cults, ranging from secretive cabals within cities to marauding bands on the fringes of civilization itself, conduct rituals, summon fiends, and spread the influence of their patrons. Their activities not only sow chaos or tyranny, but also open rifts between planes, making the veil between worlds thinner and allowing the Blood War's brutality to seep into the mortal realm. Ancient relics tied to the Blood War, scattered across the cosmos and often hidden or lost on the prime material plane, represent another vector of influence, specifically for the adventure and heroic-minded. Many a powerful archmage, unholy necromancer, gallant paladin, or covetous thief has set out on a mortal expedition seeking to uncover these rare and powerful items, and a not insignificant number find themselves unwittingly drawn into the conflict, manipulated by the very energies they sought to wield and control. These artifacts, ranging from weapons forged in the fires of the hells to tomes containing secrets from the deepest of abyssal layers, carry with them the potential to alter the balance of power, not just in the mortal realm, but in the ongoing conflict as well. The gods and their celestial servants, while often viewing the Blood War with a measure of detachment, do occasionally intervene in the mortal affairs to counteract the spread of infernal or abyssal influence. Divine interventions, whether through the bestowal of visions, empowerment of champions, or even the direct action by celestial beings, serve as potent countermeasures to the destabilizing effects of the Blood War's incursions and influence onto the mortal realm. These mortals, often caught in the crossfire or manipulated into participation, do play a pivotal and sometimes inadvertent role in the struggle, serving as puppets, pawns, soldiers, and sometimes even game changers on the cosmic chessboard, all signifying the Blood War's expanded influence, reminding all of the delicate balance that maintains the multiverse's stability and the peril that arises when that balance is threatened. This ceaseless battle between the forces of law and chaos has endured for eons, and thankfully for those of us that are not of the fiendish persuasion, it has done so without clear prospect of resolution. Yet the implications of this perpetual struggle and the dire consequences of any potential conclusion shine a glaring light on the necessity of this conflict and the precarious balance it maintains. The enduring nature of the Blood War is not without purpose for those of us outside the lower planes. It is this continuation as a stalemate that serves as the single most critical mechanism for planar stability, by preventing either force of evil, whether it's in the form of order or anarchy, from reshaping the multiverse and its inhabitants in their image. This constant evil-on-evil struggle prevents the turning of their full attention to the conquest of other planes, thereby safeguarding our very existence from tyrannical servitude or its dissolution into chaotic entropy. In the final analysis, the Blood War is far more than just a backdrop for high-level adventure. It is a reflection of the conflicts that simmer or rage within all beings, across all societies, and across all planes. It underscores the importance of balance, not just in the cosmic sense, but in the moral and ethical choices faced by individuals. This war reminds us that in a universe where the forces of order and chaos are forever at odds, the choices of even the smallest among us can tip the scales, for better or for worse. Thus, the Blood War stands as a central pillar of the Dungeons & Dragons multiverse, a never-ending story that captivates, terrifies, and yet, when reflected with the proper lens, can inspire. It is a saga of constant struggle, a cautionary tale about the cost of power and the price of stability, and a call to heroes in the face of an unrelenting tide of darkness. In this way, the Blood War is not just a conflict to be won or lost, but a fundamental aspect, the ongoing story of the realm, our realm, the Forgotten Realms. And that concludes our deep dive into the Blood War. This video should serve as our primer, the foundation that now lets us travel in many directions. Do we dive into the individual lore-rich abyssal layers? Maybe we start profiling the various demon lords, or do some discovery on the Yugoloths, notable battles, or the many fascinating stories of lore related to the demons and the Blood War. So many choices. How about you help me decide by commenting down below? And if you'd like to support the channel and keep the content sponsor-free, please check out the links below. Free Patreon memberships, free Discord access, and Buy Me a Coffee donation link. And if you think I earned it, please like and subscribe. And if you're a regular and haven't subscribed, at least tell me why, so maybe I can do better and earn your sub in the future. Thanks for listening, and remember, until next time, the only limitation at your table is your imagination.